Hello, and thank you for coming. Today, I'd like to talk about a very special series of games, that being the Magical Quest trilogy. A series of platforming games for the SNES that is very cute, very easy to just pick up and play, and holds a special place in my heart. Specifically, I want to talk about the main mechanic of the games, the costume system. Every game has 4 sets of costumes in total, and in all of them, they're the core of the gameplay and what holds it all together. Discussions about power-ups in video games are nothing new, especially in the grand year of our Lord 2024, but this game series just isn't talked about very often. There are 6 people in the Magical Quest community, and I'm 8 of them, to put it into perspective. For a lot of people that you may ask about the games, they probably remember them very fondly from playing them in the formative years, but still no one really talks about them from a mechanical or gameplay standpoint. So I thought, fine, I'll do it myself. They are made to be simplistic games, don't get me wrong, but that doesn't mean there isn't a lot of cool stuff to talk about them. For those who don't know anything about the gameplay and are still watching anyway, first up, how dare you do something I do myself? And second, here's a quick rundown. Early on in each game, you get a new costume per level, usually in the first screen, and you can use said costume to traverse the levels, be it for exploration or combat. As you earn more costumes, you can switch into them on the fly, which puts the main wrinkles in the gameplay that give me the topic for this very video. You switch into other costumes because, mechanically, they are more advantageous to be in than others for certain parts of the game. In fact, most of the costumes in this list, you only have to actually use probably once in the whole game. Like, Cowboy and Cowgirl, Mickey and Minnie over there, they are only required for the first phase of the final boss, which is crazy to think about. So that begs the question, which costumes are the overall best? Which are the most versatile ones that have to clear the game with as little trouble as possible? So, time to lay the ground rules. I will be rating each costume based on how useful it is. So like, how useful it is for completing a certain section, how well it does against the enemies in the game, and if those advantages are relevant in the first place, of course. Costume availability will be taken into account, as it is one of the main impacting factors for the usage of the suits. I will be considering hard mode for all of the games, since that puts more stress on the qualities of each suit and lets them stand out from each other more. You may also notice there's a lot of copies going around there in TBD. Every game has 2 playable characters. Minnie was added in the GBA version of Magical Quest 1, but she is present in all versions of Magical Quest 2, with Donald stealing both her man and place in the game as a playable character in Magical Quest 3. In the first 2 games, the costumes are all identical. I was thinking of maybe writing Minnie's costumes as how the costumes perform in the GBA versions of the game, but the problem with that is that the bottom line is all of the costumes are worse in the GBA games thanks to good old screen crunch. So instead, I decided to rate the copied costumes based on how dripped out Mickey and Minnie are in them. In Magical Quest 3, 2 of the costumes are fairly mechanically different, so I can at least confidently tier them differently from each other in that case. Okay, how about we start? Unfortunately, we're gonna have to start with a bit of a low note. The lowest note in the entire list, in fact. These are normal Mickey and Minnie. The normal suit is one that you get in all 3 games, and it's the one you always start with in stage 1, and that you get to, walk around the first few screens and use its ability to grab blocks and throw it at enemies, or maybe even just stun enemies and throw them into each other. And don't get me wrong, that is a helpful thing to do. But in the case of Magical Quest 1, it's just not good enough, especially compared to what the other costumes all do. Like, as soon as the game starts, you're just counting down the seconds until you get the Sorcerer costume. Or Wizard, depending on which version you want to talk about it. This is like the only costume I know of that has 2 official names to it. But I digress, we're still talking about the bad one. What makes the normal costume so bad is that its attacking method is just really unsuitable for what the game is like. See, because Magical Quest 1 is, by definition, the first one, it's got some jank to it, and it notably comes in the form of the controls. They actually work just fine, but a lot of the actions have some end lag to them. Notably, after jumping on enemies or throwing blocks at things, there is some notable cooldown, and this will get you hit a lot of the time, especially with how like mean the enemy composition can be sometimes on hard mode, especially in the first stage. Like in the first stage, you notice this with a lot of the beetles that slowly fly down from the sky. You can totally jump on them. They are kind of tiny and hard to land on sometimes, but the time it takes for you to grab them and then throw them, it's more than possible for it to just get hit by another enemy. And given that is the main ability of the normal costume, it's really, really rough. Uh, like the ability to destroy blocks is nice, but all three of the other costumes just do that better for you. So the normal suit, it really isn't that good. At the moment you get the wizard or sorcerer suit, you are basically never looking back on normal. Unless you like want to conserve a bit of the ammo here, but the Magical Quest games, even on hard mode, just shower you with costume ammo. So that's not a worry you have to think about. Like, and since you have to use it in the first stage, how much do you actually, like, how much are we gonna rate that in the favor of the first suit? You use it, but you're not using it because you want it, because it is mechanically advantageous. You use it because you're stuck with it. That's not a very good look. Even in the first boss, the problem with the lag comes up. You really want to grab the blocks and throw them at the snake as fast as you can, but it's not at all impossible for you to get stuck in lag while doing so. And I'm struggling to come up with situations to use it after the first stage because it's just really hard to come up with them. Like, the Firefighter suit, it can destroy golden blocks much more fast and efficiently than the normal one can. And the Climber suit is just... it's just normal suit plus. It's like normal suit with a tether. So like in fact, by the point you get the Climber costume, there really isn't any reason to go back to the normal costume. Well, okay, I like. There is one place in the whole game where you might want to use the normal costume after you first obtain the other ones. And that is 6-1, the first screen of the final stage. There is a shop underwater that you want to go to, which is notable because in the shops in these games, you can buy powered up versions of the costumes with ammo. So in the case of Magical Quest 1, you can buy a powered up version of the wizard suit that has double the ammo, which is really, really helpful for just spamming it, or an upgraded version of the Firefighter suit. And one of the easiest ways you can just get the money for them, because they are 300 coins a piece, so 600 total if you're trying to go for them, is to destroy the blocks, the golden blocks specifically that you come across. And given that there is a timer in Magical Quest 1, meaning you can't really dawdle on stages very much, the Firefighter's ability to destroy golden blocks very quickly just outshines normal in everything it can do. For the money gathering purposes at least. And after that, you get the Climber costume, which, as I mentioned, is just normal plus. It's just normal with a tether that allows you to grab things from afar. So what makes normal useful in 6-1 is that you cannot use the tether underwater for the blocks that are blocking the shop in a little underwater area. And so you actually want to voluntarily press the button to change into the normal suit. So congratulations, you get one place of usage, and that is reaching a shop so that the player can upgrade the better suits. Honestly, there isn't anything more damning than that. This is an easy C tier, easy bottom of the whole list, actually. For the two costumes, I think I just have to rate Minnie higher than Mickey. Because, well, as we can see here, this is their little pose for the end of the stage. And because Minnie's using her Magical Quest 2 sprites, she just looks way more sleek, more detailed. I really don't like the way Magical Quest 1 Mickey looks at the camera. Look at how much cuter he is in the future games. Magical Quest 1, he's just the sleep paralysis demon costume. Minnie just looks better, but I don't really care for how she keeps her eye closed for some reason in her end of the stage pose. In Magical Quest 2, she does, which is the game that came out first for Minnie. She keeps her eye open, and it just looks weird with the eye closed. I don't know why they changed that. I don't know if that was like a mistake, a sprite limitation or something. So yeah, we're not eating well here. But don't worry, because all of that is about to change. Because Wizard or Sorcerer, both are official names, they are amazing. Like, you feel like you actually get to play the game once you get them. You're like, oh right, I was playing hard mode. Well, not anymore. These two suits are just so good at what they do. They are actually very simple. What happens is that once you get them, you can press the attack button to shoot small little magic blasts that on easier difficulties it defeats enemies outright, but on hard mode it will stun them first, forcing you to fire a second magic shot, draining more of your ammo, which is a limiting factor. But remember, these games shower you in ammo pickups, so you really don't have to worry about it that much. You can kind of spam this to your heart's content, and very few of the like in very few situations where you actually kind of miss it. You shouldn't, of course, just spam it willy nilly, but it's still very manageable. Even with the non upgraded suit, you can just take it all the way to the end game. I do recommend upgrading at least one of the two ammo suits, either Wizard or Firefighter, but honestly, both of them can get the job done. The only difference is that they're more spammable, which is helpful. Don't get me wrong, but you don't need to upgrade them if you don't want to. For Sorcerer as or Wizard, I'm still not gonna make up my mind on the whichever name I want to use it. But anyway, for Wizard, what you can also do is that you can charge the magical blast to increase its range. Uh, I forget exactly the numbers, but you can do a mid charge that costs you 3 bars, and you can do a full charge that costs you either 4 or 5. I can't really remember right now. I think 4. But you never really want to use the mid charge for anything. It's kind of like in Mega Man X, where it's not actually stronger. It just has like one slightly better quality. In here, being that it travels a bit farther than the short Magic Blast, but the low cost of the regular Magic Blast makes it totally worth it. The charged version is really potent, however. If you charge it, you can destroy several blocks in a row. You can destroy the coin or heart containers to get the prize inside. You can, notably, you can destroy a lot of enemies in just one hit. Like, I think the only enemy that actually survives being struck by the full charge is the shield guard, but that enemy pretty much survives anything unless you steal the shield with the climber costume or just push them off a platform with Firefighter. But honestly, Sorcerer can just do a little bit of everything. It even has it is probably the no, it's not the only costume with a passive effect, but it is one of the few costumes that actually has a passive effect, and that is the ability to eternally breathe underwater. Well, eternally, as in until the timer runs out and kills you, but you know what I mean. But that is a very good thing because in Magical Quest 1, for some reason, the ability for Mickey and Minnie to hold their breaths underwater is really limited. You pretty much have to use the wizard costume anytime you want to go underwater in this game. But that's good because you already want to stay in this costume for most of the game anyway. So these are the general abilities. Now, this thing is an absolute boss killer if you need it, if you're really good with your shots, basically. the boss of stage 2, the spider, yeah, you can just annihilate it as it enters the screen. It's really satisfying, and I highly recommend anyone to do it. Like, just charge your shot, and as the boss starts slowly entering the screen, release it and start mashing the shit out of the button. You can like reliably get it into red health, and maybe even just kill it outright if you're really good at spamming it. Like stage 3, you actually need Firefighter, so that's not a very good uh, boss to use it on. But in stage 4, it's probably the quickest way of defeating the Eagle boss. Because if you're really smart about it and really quick about it too, that's also important, you can pretty much avoid the need of changing into Climber to survive the wind attack that blows you off the stage. If you just, like, jump outside the stage as soon as it's about to, like, use the strong wind against you, you can stay on the nest, and you can charge up the magical blast for as soon as the boss comes down from the sky, and just wail on them with it. It is the quickest way of defeating that boss, but it does require a lot of like finesse with how you play. So it's not always ideal. Like sometimes you might actually want to use Firefighter if it's landing on one of the side platforms instead of the middle one, because then you can get a lot of the hits in. And Firefighter is much better at taking out the birds, like the little hatchlings that it throws at you. Wizard is actually kind of bad at that. You notice that because of the sort of laggy controls, it's very possible that like you hit one of the baby birds and then another one just snipes you from the platform. So it's still a very good option there. Not perfect, but where it is a really good option, it's the boss of stage 5. Stage 5, you don't actually have much reason to use Wizard, but against the boss, probably the hardest boss in all 3 games at that, this is your best option. You can only hit it on the head, and the boss is constantly moving around, so it's really easy to just accidentally hit the body, which is immune. But what am I trying to say? Oh yeah, but if you're a good shot, which you can totally become once you learn how the bosses move and their patterns and everything, you can just fucking no-clip the Walrus boss from the ice stage. While he's standing on the other side of the platform, you can just dodge the snowballs and then throw a fully charged magic blast at him. Preferably, you want to freeze the balls with the Firefighter costume, but if you're doing that, all you're doing is just prolonging the fight because you're not actually hurting the boss. So if you want to be more aggressive, just by all means use Sorcerer for that. And as if that wasn't enough to talk about, I forgot to say that Sorcerer just destroys all 3 of the mini-bosses in this game. You can use it against the first mini-boss in the first stage. You're stuck with normal for that one, and for that reason it might be the actual hardest boss in the game, not even the Warl's boss, because you just have this really laggy costume to deal with it. But if you want to rematch it in the final stage, which you don't actually have to, in case you know your way around it, yeah, you can just charge up magical blast after magical blast and pelt the boss with it. Like the little boomerang hoop mini boss, the second one. As long as you stay close to that boss, he won't actually jump far away from you and use his dangerous attacks. So what you do is just stick close to it and charge a magic blast and then release it at it. Lather, rinse, repeat. It just goes down in the blink of an eye. Now the third boss is mini boss is pretty annoying. It's the rat guy, the one that you fight in the fire grotto and in the rematch in the final stage if you want to. That guy is really dangerous in the GBA version because dodging his attacks is almost impossible with the screen crunch. He just shoots you up to the spiked ceiling and you have no way to react to it. It's super fun. Super recommend for everyone. But with Wizard, you can just keep your distance and constantly walk around so that he doesn't make you headbutt into a spiked ceiling, and then just hit him back with a charged magic blast as the little platform comes down. It's just this is the all-purpose suit out of all the games, probably. I don't actually think this is the best suit, mind you. It does have a few limitations here and there. Like there's some enemies that you still want to use Firefighter for. It's really bad against the shield guards that are in the final stage, but fortunately there aren't a lot of them. I guess there are some in stage 4 too, but you can just safely ignore those. Like, make no mistake, might as well do this right now. These are S tier costumes. Absolutely. There's rarely a situation where you don't want to be in these. And if you do want to be in another costume for those situations, it's because the other costumes just have uh, very appropriate characteristics for that part, and not because this one is bad. This costume is never a bad option at all. For the differences in tier here, I think Mini very clearly is the more dripped out one here. Once again, sorry, Mickey. But I think Mini just does so much more with her suit. Like, I think the pink actually looks really nicely here. In some of Mini's other suits, I think the pink can look kind of sickly, but here I think it matches pretty cutely in the outfit. I really like how uh, the edges of the suit look. Like here in the sleeves, here at the end, it kind of looks like a dress. Looks pretty cute. I really like how the hat looks. I like the little feather on the gem. Looks way better than the feather on the gem in Mickey's costume. And I just like the pointy hat a lot more. The little princess hat. It looks cute. Minnie, this is just a very solid win for Minnie. Mickey even has like, it kind of has an Orientalist edge to it if you want to get into that, with the whole Sultan costume he has going for him. The colors don't even look bad. I quite like the regal red that he has going here. It's just, eh, not for me. They even have like the same shoes, and I just noticed the same pointy shoes. You can't tell from this pose of Minnie, but they have basically the same shoes. That's funny. Well, I think that does it. Uh, a really good suit that, surprise, surprise, is going to be followed by another really good suit. These are the Firefighters. You get them in stage 3, which it's almost near the middle point of the game. You actually don't even get it in the first screen, unlike the Wizard suit. You get it in the second screen after you fought the mini-boss. But that's actually a good thing, because this would suck against the mini-boss anyway. You can use it on the rematch against the mini-boss, and all it does is that it can put out the little fire shot that he throws at you. It's nothing impressive. It's just kind of there for that fight. It just deals a wimpy amount of damage and blocks one attack while not even being able to reach the boss from the other side. But don't let that dissuade you. I really like the Firefighter. It's a really good kind of, I wouldn't say it's all purpose like the wizards are, but it's still, it's pretty relevant in what it does. The way it works is that if you hold the attack button, Mickey and Minnie will shoot a continuous stream of water in front of them. It reaches about, I want to say, 1/3 of the screen in the SNES version and half of the screen in the GBA version because lol screen crunch. But as simple as that is, just having a permanent hitbox in front of you has a lot of merit. Namely, you can use it for repositioning Grey Block, which is really, really useful for just molding the field to your advantage. You kind of have to use it for some platforming puzzles, which is a forced thing, so I'm not really sure how to count it towards it. But the actual effect is just really good. Against enemies, well, first up, it just instantly defeats all the fire enemies in the Fire Grotto, as one would expect. But against other enemies, what it does is that it pushes them around, besides just dealing damage. Most of the time, using this against set enemies will defeat them, but against others, it will push them off platforms, which is enough to just get rid of them. It's actually really helpful against the shield guards, which are some of the more annoying enemies in the game. You can just stay in front of them and push them out of platforms with this. It's honestly a really helpful effect. You'd think just just using the magical blasts from Wizard would be, better since it actually defeats them. But this is just such a brain dead effect that it works just as well in most situations, even if the range is a bit worse. It's probably the same or even slightly better than the range of the short Magic Blast, only losing out to the big one. But it's still enough given the screen size of the game. Uh, in terms of how this suit fights bosses, it's pretty middle of the road, I'd say. You have to use it against the boss of stage 3, so I don't actually want to give it much credit since, there's no alternatives. What are you doing? You're not using this costume because it's good, you're using it because you have to. But it, against, what am I trying to say? Oh yeah, against the Eagle in stage 4, it's an interesting pick. Normally you want to use the charge shot from the wizard to take it out, but if it lands on one of the side platforms, I don't have the right numbers down, but I think you can do almost as much damage with the sprays of water. If you keep jumping while the boss is lowering the egg to attack you, you can get a lot of hits in. And as a bonus, if the boss uses the attack of the little hatchlings against you, it's just gonna safely push them away from you. And even if they're still on the platforms after that, it's just really easy to attack them and defeat them with it. It's a really helpful tool for that occasion in particular. You can use pretty much any of the 3 actual suits in the fight against the Eagle, so it's nice that all of them have their time to shine. And another place where it actually kind of pops off is in stage 5. Not just the boss. You can use it against the boss, I'll get to it in a minute, but in the stage itself, one of the biggest weaknesses of the Firefighter is that you cannot move on the ground while using it. You have to stay still. And this can be kind of annoying because you have to constantly jump around if you want to use it, and that can make you hit obstacles accidentally a lot more easily. But in stage 5, because of the slippery slopes, you can kind of use the water spray while you're running. And that can help you hit a lot of those little frozen weasels that jump out of the ground. It's just really convenient. I feel like Firefighter is a lot more suited for fighting them than the Wizard is. And as an extra bonus, there are little ice platforms, like little ice sleds that you can ride on stage 5. And because the ice is doing the movement for you, you can just hold the water spray while you move, effectively canceling out the main weakness of the suit. You won't get too much done out of it since it's not gonna hit a lot of the enemies in front of you, but it's nice to have the little hitbox of protection in front of you. You can also use it to create little icy platforms for the ice orbs that you find in stage 5. But I don't think those are really helpful. All they really do is give you some score, because there is a prize box floating in the middle of some of them. And like that's good, but I don't really want to count the score towards these games because I don't think most people really care about that. So that's not really an issue that should be concerned when thinking about the Firefighter. And then after that, we get to the Walrus, which, like I said, preferably you want to use the Sorcerers against, but maybe you're not a very good shot and you run out of ammo against the Walrus, so what then? The Firefighter is more than a suitable replacement. Because of the continuous stream of hitboxes, literally, you can just hold the button while the Walrus is jumping around and doing its ice skating tricks, and you can hit him on the head several times. It's not gonna do a lot of damage, it's gonna be fairly little, so unless you have the upgraded version, there is a very realistic chance you're gonna run out of ammo. But it's really good against the snowball attack. That is one of the hardest attacks to dodge in the entire game, to be honest. And, well, you can just freeze them in the air with Firefighter. It's something that only it can do, and it's something it can do very well. Unfortunately, you won't have enough time to like switch back into wizard and charge up the magic blast while the boss is still standing still. By the time you get to charge it, he's already gonna be doing his whole shtick again of moving around and doing all those tricks that make it hard to hit him on the head. But you can totally just keep switching back and forth between Firefighter and Wizard for the Walrus. I am mentioning this boss a lot because he is the hardest boss in the game, and so being good against him is something that is pretty valuable. Obviously, normal isn't gaining any points for that, so we can already discard it. Uh, Besides that, there's stage 6, and oh yeah, I forgot to mention, but in stage 6 there's a section where you have to use a magic carpet by charging it with wizard, but I don't want to count that towards it because both you are forced to do it and you don't have to do it. Because if you're really clever about it, you can watch the speedrun to show you how to do it. You can just get damaged by one of the enemies in that room and sort of just ignore all of the death spikes with the invincibility frames. It's pretty helpful. It's really good to know that. So you don't really have to do that really slow and honestly really boring section the way you're intended to. You can just breeze past it, which, if you learn about it, I recommend doing it. I've done it before, and it's honestly way more fun than doing it normally. For Firefighter, there actually isn't a lot of things for it to do in Stage 6. You can push the shield guards off their platforms. You can even push one of them into the water, which is funny. They don't have a reaction for it, but I just find it really funny that you can do that. And honestly, you can just, you can use it against the flying torches in 6-3, the third screen, and that is a thing. You can do it. It's not very impactful because they are very easy to dodge, and you can do the same with the wizard anyway. But I suppose doing it with the firefighters is a bit easier. And after that, you have the final boss, which I specifically didn't mention with wizard because I want to talk about right now while talking about both of the costumes. Basically, just use wizard for the final boss. I see a lot of people thinking you have to use that you have to use Firefighter for some reason, because you have the constant stream of hitboxes, so it's safer. It can block the moving wall attack, but even though like it's less ammo effective for a wizard to do that, you can still like just crouch and attack one of the wall blocks with the wizard, and then boom, you dodge the entire attack. Wizard just doing the charged magic blast on Pete over and over. It's the way easier way of beating that boss. Like Firefighter, you can do it, but you're only doing it because you're like Firefighter, basically. Not because it's good against the final boss. So, having all that in mind, I think Firefighter is a solid A tier. Probably the top of the tier too. These are two very cream of the crop costumes, but one of them is creamier and crappier. I think that the availability lead too that Wizard has is important because you're using it all the time in Stage 2. Like, there's no reason to ever get out of Wizard in Stage 2. And granted, you do that mostly for Stage 3 too, but by then there's less of the game left. And remember, you're already using Wizard to fight the fire mini boss in Stage 3. That's already something that firefighters are losing on. And I find it's just Firefighter is the less applicable of the two suits, even though it is still pretty good. Now, I actually think Mickey looks better in these two. While Minnie has the better sprite art, I think Mickey's red is just a better color than the yellow. I also like his little badge more than Minnie's bow. One aesthetic problem that Minnie has in every single game, as you might have noticed, is that she wants to put bows in everything. Like, girl, are you okay? Do you have an obsession you want to talk about? It's really hard to not notice it once you look at it. Like, the only one where she doesn't do it is Sorcerer. which is just funny. Like, hey, another reason for her to be above Mickey. She's actually being different this time around. I just think that Mickey looks more pleasing to the eyes than Minnie in this costume. So congratulations, Mickey. You get this one. And last but certainly not least, even though the game wants it to be the least, we have Climber. Yes, that's the official costume. I always called it like Mountaineer, but I guess it's Climber. That's what the both the game manual and the multiplayer battle screen call it, so Climber it is. So, Climber. Every Magical Quest game has a dedicated Climber suit, and notably in the first game, it's actually the third suit that you get instead of the second one, as it is in Magical Quest 2 and Magical Quest 3, which is pretty interesting. Uh, so yeah, because of the way Magical Quest 1 handles its costumes, as in, it does not give you one in the first stage at all, this means that the third costume you get is awarded to you in the fourth stage. That's already halfway through the game. Only now you're getting to use this one. Uh, so Climber, the way it is as I was describing it earlier, just normal plus. It is it has the normal costume's ability to grab items and throw them at enemies. As items, I mean blocks and stunned enemies, and that is pretty helpful. That there are some times where that is a more preferable method of attacking than just using a projectile like the other ones. Not many scenarios though. So the tether is actually the main attraction here. The tether, what it does is that it can help you, it can sort of help you get stuck to something, namely soft platforms. If you aim the tether at a soft platform, what you can do is that you lock yourself to it and you start swinging around. If you hold the button upwards to move up and scale it, you can like adjust how how much of the rope you're holding, like the distance you have between the platform, the place where you're holding to it, and where Mickey and Minnie are. And this can be really helpful for platforming. It can be helpful for just getting out of bad situations. Like if you just want to ignore some enemies, you can just cling to another platform and then keep swinging. Because if you hold the side buttons left or right while you're swinging on the rope, you can just jump to that side. And the platforming uses this a lot. It's a bit difficult to explain it without demonstrating, but this is the most complicated costume to use in all of the games. It's very technical. If you ever played the GBA version, I highly recommend you do the climber battle. It's like an absolute obstacle course with very hard places to grab with it and swinging around between the different floating platforms, the soft platforms, the floating spheres you can cling onto. It's really, really fun because of how actually really hard it is. Another one of the hardest challenges in all of the Magical Quest games. But as for the main game, as I was saying, you can also cling on to floating platforms. You can cling on to the gray blocks, as well as the little gray spheres, with the difference being you can't stand on the spheres, you can only cling on to them. But that is all really cool, and I actually kind of want to uh, like put this as a plus for the suit instead of something that you're forced to do, because in stage 4 you already have Sorcerer and Firefighter, but using a Climber it's just so much easier. It is faster too with that. Yeah, you really could just sit here and defeat all these enemies, or you could move along with your life. Like, this suit is, as you might expect, it doesn't have a lot to do because it's already halfway through the game. But what it does have to do is helpful. It's pretty helpful, I'll say. The main problem here is availability. Like, let's look at the stages now. So you have stage 4. You can definitely use this against the boss. The game kind of wants you to, because The idea is you use this to clink yourself to the floating sphere so the boss doesn't blow you away from the platform. But in terms of dealing damage to it, all you can do is just grab the giant egg the boss is coming down with, which you have to be really fast for in hard mode because the thing is really, it moves really fast with the egg in that mode, and just throw it at it. And that's it, you just get one hit per pass. So Firefighter and especially Wizard are much more efficient at defeating it quickly. And that's kind of it. You have one really good stage and an okay boss to go with. It is the safest way of defeating the eagle, just staying with the climber costume. Then there's stage 5, where you never even really think about the suit there. Because I actually never tested it. Can you even cling on to the soft platforms in stage 5? I don't know if you can actually, but even if you can, it wouldn't really matter. Because stage 5 is all about going really fast. It's all about channeling your other rodent from a video game and just beating the stage really fast with the ice platform. And you really never want to use Climber for that. There's never a good reason why the tether is good. I didn't mention it yet, but the tether against enemies, it's weird. If you use it on an enemy, you can briefly stun them with it, but then they immediately get back. Like they do a little hop, like they're startled, and then they go back to attacking you. That's it. That's all it does. The other thing you can do is that it can grab a stunned enemy so that you can throw at other enemies, but as I've already explained, that can be a bit of a sluggish option. But it might still be faster than, like, switching into Wizard, defeating the enemy, and then switching back into Climber. So that's why it's not a very good combat suit. But, well, speaking of being bad at combat, it doesn't do anything against the Walrus, the hardest boss in the game, so that's already a blow to it. Unless you just want to keep trying to risk your life jumping on his head with the Climber costume for the lols, or if you have something to prove, I guess. And after that, there's stage 6. Now, I will say 6-1, the first screen, is actually pretty good for it because, again, you can steal the shields from the shield guards, something that you can also do on stage 4, I forgot to mention, and just jump on them like 4 times and defeat them. It's pretty helpful. It lets you traverse around the upper platforms without having to risk your life going near the big fish on the water. Those guys are really scary because they are a one-hit kill. And Climber helps you avoid them. That's pretty good. It helps you sneak up on the archer enemies that are like everywhere in the first screen of the final stage. If they're like pointing at you from afar, you can just use the Climber to climb down the soft platform they're standing on from below, and then just jump them and kill them. That's really good. You can kill them with Wizard and Firefighter, but sometimes that's not very feasible because you have to like walk all the way around the platforms and finally get to them. Using the tether is way easier. And that's about it. Like, yeah, these two things are basically what the costume does in Magical Quest 1. I really wish this costume was better, but by the time you get it, the game is almost over. That's the biggest problem with it. They did think of ways of designing it, but there just isn't enough of the game left by the time you get to it. You have one entire stage where you are really good, a boss where you are okay against, and the first screen of the final stage where it is again pretty good, and then there's nothing for it to do anymore. It can do anything in 6-2, it can do anything in 6-3, and it sure as hell can do anything against the mini-boss rematches or Pete. So that's just kind of a sad story. Now, for as much as it might seem as I'm shit-talking this suit, it is... whoops. It is nowhere near as bad as the normal costumes. Like, these are actual liabilities you want to stay away from, whereas this, there are multiple occasions where you want to be in it. So I think B tier is very fine. It is very definitely a step below from Firefighter 2. No way this is gonna be an A tier. It's probably gonna be at the bottom of B2 because the availability screws it over so much. Again, by the time you get it, the game is practically over. But it's still way better than anything that I'm gonna put here in C, don't worry. In terms of aesthetics, I think Mini also solidly wins here. I do think the blue bow is really redundant, but I quite like the scion she's wearing. I really like the scarf too, I think it looks great. I like the little idea here. Whereas Mickey has the red feather, Minnie has the red scarf. They match up really well in the multiplayer battle screen in the GBA. In the GBA version of the game, they have these really cute little drawings of the characters in their suits for that. It looks absolutely adorable. And, like I will say, I think her outstretched arm here looks kind of off. Like, damn girl. Really stretchy, huh? But for as much as I actually really like the pose Mickey is doing here, I think the suit looks a little more, I wouldn't say generic, but it just looks like discount Peter Pan. Even though, like I said, I know the idea is that of a mountaineer. I don't know, I just don't think the red boots look that good too. They just look kind of rubbery. But again, that's more fault of the older sprite work of this game. So there it is. Time to start talking about the Magical Quest 2 costumes. One big difference in this game compared to the previous one is that now we actually get the first actual costume in the first stage, rather than having to wait until the second stage to do so. So pretty much all the costumes have a little bit more to do, so I can talk about their achievements a little bit more. But first up we have to talk about the basic costume, which you still start with at stage 1. And my god, this is a certified glow up. This is miles better than what the normal costume does in Magical Quest 1. Like, there are actual genuine situations in Magical Quest 2 where you wanna be in the normal costume. It's insane. For starters, now you can actually grab and throw objects much faster, so its main method of attacking is no longer an absolute liability. And not to be too depressing and spoilery about it, but let's just say the other costumes in this game, they're not as show-stopping as the ones from Magical Quest 1 in a lot of scenarios. They still have their moments, don't get me wrong, but not gonna have any S tiers for this game, sorry. Well, speaking of the normal costume again, pretty much in every stage there's something for it to do. Like, even once you get the sweeper costume in stage 1, you actually want to switch back over to normal for a few instances in the very first stage. Namely, once you start climbing the circus tent, you can go normal to grab some blocks and attack them with the balloons, which are not affected by the sweeper. That's pretty handy because if you attack a balloon that way instead of touching it, it will not release the hurtful spikes. Another thing you can do is once you actually enter the circus proper, you can grab a lot of the golden blocks and attack the enemies there with them, or you can just stomp on them once and throw them towards other enemies. It's really effective, and it's actually the only way you can get a little prize box in the center of the circus tent, so that's pretty good. After that, you want to stay on Sweeper for the rest of the stage, but that's already a much better showing than anything the normal suit can do in Magical Quest 1. Come stage 2, it's not that impressive, though there is kind of a meme use for it in stage 2. Against the boss in that stage, he has an attack where he shakes the trees and coconuts start falling at you. You can actually turn into the normal costume and grab those coconuts and attack the boss. It will actually get him out of the tree shaking attack, so while that is handy, I wouldn't really rely on it. It's kind of a meme because the coconuts are really annoying to dodge. They fall really fast, and if they hit you, you don't get to grab them. So you have to there's another coconut on the ground for you to grab and throw at the boss. What I would do is just stick to the safari costume for the boss and stay near the top of the trees where the coconuts can hurt you. But still, if you want to do it for the vine, literally, go for it. Come stage 3, there's Not that much there that I can think of. Again, it's the usual thing you can do in Magical Quest 1 with the normal. You can just use it to get the blocks away from a shop entrance. You might already have enough money to buy the Sweeper or Cowboy Cowgirl costume upgrade. And I guess you can use normal to get into the shop if you don't want to use too many ammo units from Cowboy. Apart from that, stage 3 is not a very good showing for normal costume. Uh, then comes stage 4. Now, even though you start stage 4 with the safari costume always, you actually want to immediately change back into the normal costume one of all costumes because right at the start there's a section where the water starts rising and you have to rise along with it, and there's a lot of golden blocks blocking your way. You might think that Cowboy is good for that, but normal is genuinely much more efficient at clearing the blocks away from your path, while also getting you, some money, maybe I guess some score and hearts if you're really into that early in the stage. But yeah, it's a genuine use for it at the start of the stage. After that, I don't think there's much for it to do in stage 4. You generally want to use your actual costumes for the rest of it. But in stage 5, there's one really important use for it. And that is right at the start and right at the middle of the stage. You can find these blocks with a little clock symbol on them. And if you break these blocks, time will temporarily stop and also deactivate the hitboxes on enemies. So you can just walk past them and completely ignore them. And that's good because stage 5 is pretty hard. Probably the hardest regular stage in all of the 3 games. It's actually really fun to go through. And normal is good for this because unlike Cowboy, which is forced to destroy the block, you can just carry the block around a little bit with normal and then throw it once you think you just want to ignore the enemies. It's really good. You don't have to worry about the icicle enemies. You can just walk past the sea urchin ones. And you can do this twice in the stage. It's genuinely really good. And then comes stage 6, and it's still kind of standard. Just destroy some golden blocks for, I guess, some last minute money in case you want to buy an upgrade. Or, uh, oh yeah, there's also these little golden spheres that you can grab. Again, this is something only normal costume can interact with, so points for it. And it's also present in stage 3, I forgot to mention, but the idea is you throw these little golden spheres and they start bouncing along the ground, and you can sort of combine them with the hitboxes from Cowboy and Sweeper to make it really annoying for enemies to hit you. It's handy. It's not as useful as you may think, but it's still something you're glad is there. So yeah, uh, I have a lot more actually good things to say about this costume this time, but unfortunately, it's still gonna wind up in C tier. I still don't think that for as many good situations as you want to use the normal costume as you have for the normal costume, I don't think it quite matches up to the highs of Climber in Magical Quest 1. Even though there's only realistically two situations where you want to use Climber in Magical Quest 1, they are damn good situations. And for normal, you like sort of use it for 5 seconds in every stage in the game, admittedly, but then you forget about it. So it's hard, but I would still pick Climber any day because you can still do a lot of stuff with it thanks to how technical it is. As for aesthetics, I want to give this one to Mickey because, well, he is walking living proof that plastic surgery works. And thank God for that. Look at how much more sleek this design is. Even the arms look better. Minnie is the same. I do think she looks a little bit better, even though this is the game where she actually appeared in first. I just think the pose looks better in 2 rather than in 1 for GBA. And with that, uh, we can finally hop onto the actual first costume you get, this time in the first stage. Hooray, because that's one of the better things I have to say about it, because this this is the one that makes me sad. Sweeper looks pretty alright on paper. It's basically Magical Quest 2's version of the Firefighter. It even has the same little limitations, where the way you use it is by holding the attack button, and unlike a spray of water that's got a lot of horizontal reach, admittedly, Sweeper has pretty meh horizontal reach in exchange for some actually better vertical reach. I still think Firefighter's hitboxes are better, but it is nice that Sweeper can reach more things vertically. Like, there's actually a purpose in crouching with it to get some enemies under you, something that you don't really care for with Firefighter, because you can really do that well. The way Sweeper works is that if you use it on an enemy, it's gonna suck up that enemy and you will get a little reward out of it. Uh, Coins more often than not, and silver coins at that more often than not, so only one. But some enemies will give you five, which is really good. It really helps you get to the upgraded costumes, combined with the rest of the money you find alongside the stages and the money dumps you get at the end of the regular stages. So that's nice. It's really nice to have a costume that actually gives you a resource. That's really unique. But unique doesn't really equal good, does it? So the way I describe the sweeper is true, but there is the really big caveat that it just doesn't interact with that many things in the game. Like blocks, the destructible blocks that normal costume can destroy with no problem. Yeah, Sweeper doesn't even interact with them. Items, you can even suck up items to you. You guys still gotta walk up to it like a fucking poor person. Uh, and there's just some enemies that don't care for the Sweeper. They'll go right through the little wind hitbox and hit you like it wasn't there in the first place. In the first stage, you can already see this. The balloons, completely unaffected by it. Even the little spikes they release, you can't do anything with them. The little cannonballs Pete soldiers that you find inside the tin, completely unaffected. It's a surprisingly not very good showing for it. That just not a lot of things are affected by it, and even when they are, it might not even be ideal. See, when you suck up an enemy, the coin it appears behind you and moves away from you, so you have to turn back to go and grab it. And by the time you grab it, sometimes you go back to where you were and the enemy respawn. So you just go on this endless cycle of insanity, hoping for something to change. When the actual answer was don't even bother using the sweeper. Now, looking at it on a stage by stage basis, I do have some nice things to say about it. One of the best one is actually in the first stage still, because the boss of the circus, the lion, that guy is terrifying if you don't use the sweeper. You don't have to use it, but it makes your life so much easier to use the sweeper. You can get its little fur away from its face, and that just takes away its most dangerous attack, which is throwing the fur at you like a boomerang. Some of the ways it throws it at you, there's barely enough clearance to jump over the spinning fur. So that is actually a genuine point in favor of Sweeper. It makes a particular boss much easier on you. But then you get to stage 2, and it's like, okay, you can use it on the little tree guys walking around, but the moment you take away their little leafy bush, they start running away, and you're still going back to grab the silver coin, and then you suck them back and you get the golden coin, and then you realize there's way more of them, and you're just really slowing your own pace down for the sake of gathering money, which is valid, but like if you're buying the sweeper upgrade, then you're just buying it to do this process again and again and again until the rest of the game. And much like in Magical Quest 1, even though you're not actually pressured for time this time, you can go through the game with the base costume ammo just fine. You don't need the doubled ammo to really get much of anything done. It makes things easier, yeah, but the game's already really easy, even on hard mode, so what do you really care for? I guess one of my favorite, not really exploits, one of my favorite tricks to do is the fish. So the fish in this game, if you suck them out with the sweeper, they give you 5 coins, but because you move so slowly underwater, you can't catch up to them before they fall into the abyss. But if you suck up a fish right next to a wall, the coin is gonna bounce there into the wall and back into you. So you can just farm 5 coins after 5 coins and eventually get the money you want. I guess if you wanna, you can buy the little heart tank upgrade. That might be more relevant, and it's also 100 coins cheaper, so there's that. And then you keep going to the jungle, and then you keep finding more problematic areas for the sweeper because the snails in the second screen, yeah, the sweeper works on them, but it's such a precarious location. the branches are so small that all the coins are just gonna fall off. The flying squirrels, those guys are bastards. So you really want a nice, reliable, and permanent hitbox like the sweeper to get rid of them, but they are in such precarious locations that you really just want to move on with your life with the safari suit instead of just bothering to change with the sweeper to uh, suck in this very fast enemy that's just gonna leave the screen anyway. And then you get to the rocks in the like third screen, and yeah, you can use them to plug the holes of methane gas or whatever. But you can also just walk past the holes. That's a thing you can do. And then you get to the boss, and another, I guess, really memey thing you can do with the sweeper there is you can suck up the coconuts and get 1 coin each. Even on the ones that fall and don't hit the ground, you can get a coin. Yay. And then there's stage 3, the Haunted Mansion. Now you can use the sweeper to do the same trick with the little bush guys. You can suck up the sheep ghost, you suck up the sheep for 1 coin, and then the little skeleton under it for 5 coins for a total of 6. That's nice. There's a lot of enemies there in the Haunted Mansion anyway that I don't think them respawning is gonna be that much trouble, but you can kind of do that. And then, okay, now here's something legitimately good about the sweeper in stage 3. There is a mini boss, the Portrait of Baron Pete, which is a reference to the final boss of the first game, and it has 2 ways of attacking you. One is breathing down fire on the floor, which you can just shoot it with Cowboy or jump on its head with any costume. You'd think it would be spiky that you wouldn't be able to jump on his helmet, but you can. And the other way of Portrait Pete has of attacking you is by summoning some flying books that go towards you and sort of shield him from, like they sort of make it harder for you to hit him with the cork gun. Because if you focus on taking them out with the Cowboy, you don't have enough time to hit the head. And if you hit the head, there's a chance you might not have enough clearance or time to jump over the books. Enter the sweeper outfit. By standing next to the Portrait of Pete, you always have enough time to jump on him when he breathes fire on the floor, or to do this trick where once he summons the book, the little flying books, you can jump with the sweeper active to suck up the books, and then land on his head at the same time. It's a really good strategy that even awards you with a little bit of money in case you want it. I actually really like doing it for that purpose. It sounds like an absolute meme, but it's actually kind of legit. I really like doing it. For the rest of stage 3, Sweeper doesn't really do much. You can use it to blow out the candles, uh, like outside of the mansion and in the spinning tower, but it's kind of a meme. You don't really have to. You can just dash over the gaps with the charged attack of Cowboy and Cowgirl, or just let yourself to the light using the Safari costume. It doesn't do anything against the boss, so that's about it. Oh, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that in the Sega Genesis version of this game, there's an alternate screen in this stage. In the little part where you have to cling on to the lanterns in the SNES version, the Sega Genesis cannot rotate backgrounds like the Super Nintendo can, so they actually have to get creative and make an entirely new portion, which I think is really cool. It even does its own little background moving details that the Sega Genesis can do that the Super Nintendo probably wouldn't be able to make look as nicely. And in that section, lo and behold, the sweeper is pretty useless. You can just kind of like suck up a sheet ghost or something. That's it. It doesn't help you cross the gaps. You can do that with Cowboy or Safari, so that's it. Enter stage 4, and the sweeper is also not very good there. You can suck up some enemies, but you don't do it because it's good. You do it because you like the sweeper, like me for real. You're a real one if you do that. There's not there's never really a circumstance in stage 4 where using the sweeper really makes your life easier. You can just like shoot down enemies with the cork gun or jump on them. Like you can suck up the scales of the Brontosaurus, but that's not really helping you with anything. But all is about to change. Because stage 5 is where the sweeper unironically pops the fuck off. The sweeper is your best way of dealing with all the icicle enemies. They are really dangerous because if you shoot them with the cowboy, they split into two and become really small and really annoying to shoot, and you just can't jump on them. So the sweeper is just a really handy way of dealing with them. Besides, I guess walking past them all time is frozen after normal. And then after that, there's an underwater section where you can use the sweeper to suck up some jellyfish. And again, you're probably not gonna get the 5 points that they give as a reward, but it's a really good way of getting rid of them because, like I mentioned, the sweeper has some pretty okay vertical range to its hitbox. So as you swim around, you can just mindlessly deal with the jellyfish enemies, something that the cowboy might have some trouble with because it cannot hit things at point blank that effectively. So yeah, another W for the sweeper, and then the third screen is much of the same as the first screen. You can freeze time, but you can also suck up the icicle enemies with the sweeper. Unfortunately, the big ones only give out 1 coin, which is a shame, but oh well. And then there is, of course, one of the few times most people are going to use the sweeper in any playthrough. The Cloud, a boss that shoutouts to it because it used to fucking terrify me as a child. The Cloud is another one of those where, since you're forced to use the sweeper, I don't want to count it. You're not using it because it's advantageous to you, you're using it because you have to, because the game is telling you to, so I don't really want to count that. Moving past that, Pete's Castle, there's not really much of a reason to use it again. It's well past its prime. You can use it to suck up some ghosts that spawn from the armors, but might as well just shoot them down, it's more efficient. And that's kind of it. Now, it almost sounds like I'm being as positive as I am for normal, but I still think the sweeper's qualities are better to be an entire tier above normal. And I do think that in this case, the availability for the whole game long does make it superior to Climber. If Climber was more available, it would probably be above Sweeper. But as it stands, I do think that if you made me pick between like uh, Magical Quest 1 without Climber and Magical Quest 2 without Sweeper, I do think I would miss the Sweeper more, even though the game just isn't that much designed around it. Then again, half the game isn't designed around Climber either, so there's that. In terms of aesthetics, I actually really like the outfit that Mickey is sporting. It actually looks like he's dressed properly for cold, so that kind of make me feel like, oh, maybe I should use this when I was doing the Frozen Plains when I was playing as a kid. And then I really like it. Again, he really makes the cyan work like Minnie does as a climber, and I quite like the light orange shoes. It's also one of the few times we get a good look at the sweeper itself because what is this thing supposed to look like? Does this not look like any? Sorry, not sweeper, the vacuum. Does this not look like any actual vacuum I've ever seen? Because it's sort of tied to your bag, but then there's like a little box here behind it seems, and then the little thing that spews the bonus out. Look at me analyzing logic in video games. And as for Minnie's outfit, I don't much care for it. I really like the mint green. I think the mint green looks quite nice on her. But this is one of those cases where Minnie's attitude of putting bows on everything doesn't look that good. Like putting the bow on top of the little sleeper tip just looks silly. It doesn't look uncute, but it doesn't look wow either. You know what I'm saying? And she doesn't have Mickey's sick headband, so there's that. Sorry, Minnie, that's an L for you. Moving along, we have this game's dedicated climber suit, this time called the Safari suit. And you actually get it in stage 2 as opposed to stage 4 this time around, so there's a point in using it for most of the game. Now, one noticeable downgrade from Climber is that Safari Suit has a lot of trouble attacking enemies. Because if you press the attack button with the suit, nothing actually happens. You just stand there like a sitting duck. Well, sitting mouse, we don't really have a sitting duck yet. And the main ways Climber has of attacking is just the usual jump on enemies, but for enemies that you can stun, you cannot actually grab them, so I guess that makes normal a bit better, but yeah, it's worse for Safari. The main way it has of actually attacking things is by latching itself onto floating spheres, like the ones Climber can in Magical Quest 1. The characters can attack enemies with their feet, but it's really specific because, again, unlike in Magical Quest 1, you cannot adjust your height with the Safari suit like you could with the Tether in the previous game. So yeah, the actual hitbox you have for attacking enemies is really specific and not malleable at all. In a lot of ways, it kind of feels like they saw that Climber was really specific, really technical in Magical Quest 1 and just really dumped it down for Magical Quest 2. It's a shame, but for what it is, I quite appreciate it because one thing it has over Climber is that you can actually just directly go up to a wall and start climbing it, up or down. It, it's really handy. Most of the time it is used in places where you have to use it, but but there's still situations where you want to use it because it's convenient. Like it gives you a lot of extra lives. You can do the thing where you can cling on to soft platforms, like in Magical Quest One, and uh, you can choose when you climb on them. So you can like wait for an enemy to walk away from right above where you are, and then press the up button. In some cases, it's more handy to do that than to just try to confront the enemy directly. So there's that. It's a pretty basic suit, but for what it does, it's fine. And you can use it for a lot of the game. You get it in stage 2, so that's as much availability as the wizards get. Yeah, the main problem here is just the lack of offensive options, really. There's not much to say. Like, come stage 3, oh, a place where it's really good in stage 3. It's the garden, the outside of the mansion. You can actually cling on to the little lanterns you see on the outside, so you can do that to avoid falling on the spikes. That's pretty nice. And it's also the only way you can get on some of those platforms. But by the time you do that, you really want to switch back into Cowboy and Cowgirl to have an offensive option back and be able to shoot the prize boxes from up there. It doesn't really do anything in the tower interior, it doesn't do anything against the boss. Then comes stage 4, you actually, because of the little cutscene, you have to start stage 4 with it, and you immediately switch into normal because it's way better for the stage. That's kinda ouch, not gonna lie. But there's still some occasions where you want to use it. Like, you can get a lot of momentum from vines and other diagonal, like little places where you can hang on to and slide down from. That's helpful for clearing stages faster and just ignoring enemies you don't want to bother fighting. That's pretty nice. It doesn't do anything against. It's not good against the. It's not good against any boss. I just get this out of the way. You never switch into this for a boss unless you're memeing, which I do for the boss of stage 3, but never because you really want to. Okay, but another place where it actually kind of pops off, like the sweeper, is stage 5, because you can do a lot of stage 5, believe it or not, without using the climber suit, the safari suit, I mean. It's hard, but you can do it. And it's really, really damn helpful to use it, let me tell you. Because there's a lot of spikes in stage 5, a lot of them. In the ceiling, in the floor, as enemies in the form of the sea urchins, as enemies in the form of the little icicles. It's a really dangerous stage, and what better way of traversing a dangerous stage than with a suit specifically made for making platforming easier? You can cling on to a lot of the ice walls and avoid having to do dangerous jumps. You can cling on to the floating spheres and just try to stay above ground and wait for icicles and sea urchins to pass you by. It's pretty harmful. You can cling on to some of the soft platforms in the third screen of the Frozen Plains too, which I guess helps you hide from a few of the moving icicles. That's about it. And then come Pete's Castle, and you pretty much only ever use this in places where you have to. Like, I guess in the first screen you can use it to get some momentum off of a chain you can glide through. Slide through, I mean. And then I guess you can use it to hide from like one of the giant swinging spike balls. But there are some candle enemies nearby that you want to use either Sweeper or Cowboy to get past, so you still want to change for that. Yeah, overall, this is a pretty simple costume. Not a lot going for it, but for what it does get the job done. I do have a lot less to say about it than I do for Sweeper, but I do think they're about the same level of utility. I do think Sweeper wins out a little bit better thanks to the availability and making the first boss way easier, as well as also being really good in Stage 5. Then again, Safari is also really good in Stage 5. These are two suits that are kind of similar because they have noticeable ups and downs. Whereas Climber has some really good up and not many downs, but that's just because it's not in the game for that long. These have a more mixed set of ups and downs. And I do think the less offensive nature of the Safari puts it here below. Now for this one, Minnie was an absolute jerk, and when I was trying to get her sprite, her little hook would clip through the player one boards on top of the stage beat screen, so I couldn't get the nice little blue background for her. I had to get it from Safari, the start of the jungle stage, so it's automatically worse for that. But if I'm being honest, I do like Mickey's more sleek outfit this time. I think the yellow looks a lot better than the magenta she has going on, even with the scarf. And again, the silly bow on the hook she has going on. I actually like Mickey's hook better. It's a lot more square, as you can see. Not square, it has like straight angles going on it. The Minnie's is very round. I don't know which one of these would be more practical, actually. But I like Mickey's suit a bit better. And with that, only one more costume left for Magical Quest 2. And this is an interesting one. These are the Cowboy and Cowgirl. I like calling them sheriffs sometimes, but I don't think that was necessarily the intention. This is the more dedicated combat suit compared to Sleeper in this game. Think of this as Magical Quest 2's version of Wizards. So this suit, you get it in Stage 3, so almost halfway through the game, but still more than that, and with quite a bit of game going through still, because you get it right at the very start of Stage 3 for one. And it does have a lot to do. The way this suit works is that you're constantly in a state of doing short hops, and if you want to jump, you can only jump when your character is actually touching the ground, which is really annoying, really cumbersome, and gets in the way a little bit. I get they're trying to like emulate the galloping of horses, but it's one of those aesthetic details that actually kind of gets in the way of the gameplay. Not a big fan of that. I've seen a lot of people actually screw up jumps because they have to jump a gap, but because they're in Cowboy and Cowgirl, they press the jump button while they're in the air during the short hop and then lose a life and are like, wait, what happened? It's a really unfortunate thing. But outside of that, you can just hold the jump button to constantly jump, do a full hop. That can make things a bit less cumbersome and more manageable. And one really cool thing about the jump in this suit is that you know how Safari has this problem where it jumps on enemies but it does not defeat them, so stunned enemies will just get right back up and you have to jump on them again to defeat them? Sheriff does not have that problem. You can just jump on an enemy once and defeat it, provided it's not the sheep ghosts, because those you actually do have to jump on twice. Actually have to jump on them once and then shoot them while they're stunned, but still. It's pretty helpful for some enemies. Namely, I keep forgetting which. Oh yeah, in Stage 4, it's really helpful against the ants and the ammonites that jump around. It's also really good against the scales and the brontosaurus because it's really satisfying to just jump on 3 of them in a row and get a total of 800 score. Really recommend trying to do that, especially if the boss summons like multiple scales at once. Summons 3 and then another set of 3. You can really rack up your score that way. If you care about that, you probably know, you know. And the main way of attacking with the suit, of course, is the cork gun. This is this game's dedicated long-range projectile, again, like the wizards in Magical Quest 1. And it's okay. It's nowhere near as amazing as the magic is in Magical Quest 1. I guess fittingly if you think about it when you word it like that. The way it works is that you shoot a little core gun almost straight ahead. It does a little arc upwards and then downwards, but it might as well think of it as a straight line. And while it is fine, you don't really have a good fire rate. You know how with the wizards you can just spam the fire button and do a lot of attacks consecutively? Yeah, Cowboy can't do that. You can only have one cork on screen at a time, and that's really frustrating when multiple enemies are ganging up on you. You don't really have a good way of dodging because this is this is not a very evasive suit because you're either constantly jumping with the full hop and potentially hitting hazards more easily, or doing the little cumbersome short hops on the ground, make it harder to actually jump when you want to. And another really frustrating thing about the core gun is that it misses at point blank. You see this in a lot of playthroughs. Ghost is getting, like, one of the little sheet ghosts in stage 3 is getting really near you, and then the person controlling the character shoots the gun, and the cork goes right through the enemy and they get hit anyway. The hitbox is not that good, it misses at point blank, and that is so unfortunate for it. So you have a slow projectile that doesn't have a very good fire rate that misses at point blank. Wizard, this is not. Now, lastly, one more thing about Cowboy is that if you hold the attack button, you can actually charge up an attack that is itself a little charge forward. And the cool thing about this little charge forward is that Mickey and Minnie are invincible to enemy attacks during it. They are still vulnerable to hazards like spikes and such, but against enemy hitboxes, they are safe, and that is really convenient. It helps you get through some sections a bit quicker. It can actually help you get through gaps because the dash will go above gaps. It will float over them, but if it ends while over a gap, then you will fall to your death. So be careful with that. You can stop it short if you wanna. It's really useful in that little Sega Genesis part of the stage where you wanna do some tricky platforming, and you can just charge up the dash, go over the gap, stop it short, charge it up again, and then go over the other gap, and boom, you're through. It's pretty, it's nice. It's good for defeating enemies. There's some situations where it just doesn't really help. You preferably want to cross gaps with Safari because it's just plain more convenient. And yeah, these are all the attacking methods of Cowboy. I did have a lot of things to say, but you already know the gist of most of the stages, so we can kind of speed through them. Stage 3, just shoot the ghosts you see about. And another thing about the suit is that since you're constantly bouncing up and down, you're gonna be too high to hit the ghosts under the ground, but you can just crouch, which will keep you in place, and then shoot them from there. You can do that. You can shoot the candles. Just be careful you don't shoot one that you wanna turn into a platform with sweeper instead. You can obviously defeat the boss very quickly. In stage 3, you actually don't have to do it. You can just use the little ghost he throws out as a little set of stairs and jump on his head. It really looks like you shouldn't be able to do it, but you can, and it's really funny, and again, really racks up your score. Racks up your score. And then stage 4, you can use it to shoot the ants and the ammonites in the caves, you know, it's handy. It's really good against the weasel, the construction weasel, because it just tears through him. There's nothing he can do about it. You can get through that boss like in a matter of seconds. There's nothing you can do about the cork gun. It's really satisfying to just eat through his health. It's the best way of defeating the Brontosaurus. You can again jump on his scales very easily. And then it comes stage 5. You think that because Safari and Sweeper pop off on it, it would be really good there, but not really. You can jump on either the sea urchins or the ice enemies. You can do nothing against the cloud. You can shoot the ice sparrow weasel, It is possible to do that, but it's a meme because it's really hard, and he's constantly hiding inside his barrel too. I guess you can jump on his barrel while he's hiding if you have invincibility frames on. Otherwise, it hurts you. There's that. But yeah, I forgot to say the Ice Weasel. You want to use Safari for that because you can just stay out of his range on the upper edges of the arena, or just cling on to walls if you wanna. It's really handy. Definitely, uh, it's the only time you actually want to use Safari for a boss. But then after that, I have the underwater section with the jellyfish. Uh, the sweeper is much better at getting rid of them than Cowboy. Then you have the other section, the third screen of stage 5. Again, just use sweeper and Safari and even normal for that. And then don't do anything against the cloud, and that's sad. You get a pretty much a whole empty stage for Cowboy there. But in Pete's Castle, it's again back to being pretty good. You can, get rid of the mirror ghosts. You can get rid of the armor ghosts, the sheet ghosts. You can get rid of the archers that hide it near the end. Still think it's better to just like run past it, but you can take them out if you wanna. And then after that, it doesn't do anything against the cannons, but none of the costumes do, so nobody cares. And then you get to Pete, and this is interesting. I didn't mention the final boss yet for a simple reason. The first phase, you have to use Cowboy and Cowgirl to get rid of the helmet, because it counts as a spiky enemy, I guess, so you can jump on it. And the other way to deal damage to it is just shoot it with the cork gun. So you do that, and then you keep hopping on his head like 10 times effortlessly, and then just defeat phase 1 like that. It's really funny. And then you get to Dragon Peak, and honestly, just keep using Cowboy and Cowgirl. They don't have any special properties, but Sweeper doesn't do anything. You can even suck up the fire because those cowards didn't want to program that. Safari does nothing and help you evade the attacks or reach the boss or anything, so just jump on Pete's nose or shoot his nose, or if you're nasty, just charge up the dash and then dash into his nose until he goes back into his little ball, I guess. And then, there, the game is done. So even though this suit has a little less things to do, I think it actually squeezes it the way into A tier because it's very convenient. Kind of like Firefighter in a way, where I definitely call it more convenient than Sweeper or Safari. So I do think A tier is the deserving place for it. In terms of aesthetics, my bad, I think Mini actually wins this one out. I quite like the hat on both of them, but I like Minnie's more. I really like the little dress she has going on it. I don't know how you call these little things that hang out. Frills, I think. Like the one she has on the edge and the sleeves. They look really cute. And then, like, this is one situation where her bow obsession actually looks pretty cute. I quite like how the little wooden horse looks here. I quite like how Mickey looks too. This was a really tough one. I really like his pants, namely. Like, look at Mickey actually wearing pants and not shorts. Actually, he wears pants in all of his suits here. Wow, didn't even notice it. But I quite like how they look. He really has that sheriff vibe going. I don't know why he's pointing his gun upwards here. Like, what's going on? Like, the cork is pointing upwards. Why is he trying to shoot this guy? At least Minnie's holding it the right way. But either way, yeah, that's it. These are the Magical Quest 2 costumes. Yo, what's up? Come here to this 1 hour and 20 minutes mark of the video often. Now, this is supposed to be the part where I talk about the Magical Quest 3 costumes, but turns out I really did have a lot to say about them, and I didn't want this video to break the 2 hours mark, which, spoilers, with Magical Quest 3, it absolutely would. So, we're gonna save that for the next time. So, thank you so much for watching what is now part 1 of this video, and let's see if we can meet again for the next part. Toodles.